The crypto space is in a really interesting position right now, and I think that most people would agree with me if I told them that this was the absolute craziest week for crypto ever. However, one question might still remain, and that is, even though things were very crazy as of this point, what's going to happen next? How do I protect myself for the near future? And how do I set myself up for success over the next couple of months? Because at the end of the day, I think most people have not lost their faith in crypto. They're just afraid of what the next step should be. They're just afraid of what might happen next. And so if we talk about it, maybe, just maybe, it'll lighten up the mood a little bit. Because we're going to do that with the help of the Binance CEO, Changpeng Zhao. Now, CZ, the CEO of Binance, is one of the most prominent players in the crypto game, and his opinions matter a lot. Right now, there's even speculation that he caused everything, the whole FTX drama, to actually happen the way that it did. I cannot confirm, I cannot deny. All I know, and all I know for this point, and I guess all I'll ever know, is that we won't know anything for certain. And to just explain it briefly, there are mainly two different sides right now. One side is saying that CZ is the hero, that there was a very crazy amount of shenanigans going on in the background with Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of Alameda, and their parents, together with the SEC, together with potentially some very huge sums of money and some very foul play. And CZ was the hero that was trying to save crypto, and that's exactly what happened. There is the opposite side, however, of people who are saying that CZ is trying to eliminate all this competition, and by saying some negative things about the competition and people basically causing a bank run, well, that crashed FTX, and even though the fundamentals were messed up, he knew that, so he knew that by one or two tweets, one or two statements, he could completely obliterate them. Now, there's also one opposite side of people, I'd say a third, which just says that CZ just does what he thinks is best for the people, just honest opinions, and all could be equally as true. I do not know, you cannot know. All we know is that things were interesting, and a lot of it was basically caused by him, or at least amplified by his statements. So, what I guess we should take from that is that whatever he says has some value to it, and we should take it very serious, because we just saw how his opinion, that's again my opinion, caused a massive ripple in the crypto markets. He said, what a show. And it's going to be crypto's fault instead of one guy who, was basically, everybody was pointing towards him or Sam Bankman-Fried to have caused it. And he tries to kind of nuance it saying, nah, it's the entirety of crypto. It's not just one person. It's actually a little bit broader than that. Look at it from the broad point of view. There's, however, a couple of other interesting pieces, like I shared over on my Telegram. There was a little interview which he had recently where he stated a few other projects are going to be in similar situations. I think it will take a couple of weeks for most of them to come out. And how that ties back, we'll talk about it in just a second after you press that like button. Guys, make sure you press that like button just to help out these videos. You don't have to. But I noticed that ever since the crypto market went down and prices are down, people stopped pressing that like button. So I'm, trying to make sure people remember this. Now, what I tried to say just now is the ripple effects, right? Here you can see Alameda Research and FTX Ventures portfolio, and you can just kind of see how deep they really were in this crypto game. It honestly is quite massive, it is quite crazy. But again, what we want to figure out right now is what are the consequences of this going to be, keeping two things in mind. First of all, keep it in mind that CZ said that there's going to be some sort of ripple effects and that it will take a couple of weeks for a lot of companies to come out and state it. We've already had a couple of companies like BlockFi state that they are having troubles, even though a couple days earlier they said they wouldn't have any troubles. And right now, CZ said this on his Twitter. FTX aside, avoid businesses, exchanges, and projects that are not profitable. Musical chairs. Survive by selling their own tokens. FTX. Give high incentives for locking their tokens or your tokens. Have a large total supply, but only a small circulating supply. This has to do with, let's say a project is new and there's 10% of the tokens out on the market and the rest 90% is going to be put on the markets with time. You might actually put Ripple holding XRP into the category here. Again, just putting XRP in the category. I'd personally like to see it differently though. More so coins that are just heavily VC backed, where a lot of venture capital firms have a ton of this token just not unlocked yet. So over the next 2 years, they're all going to be getting their tokens and they're going to be eager to sell it, like we've had with Solana, like we've had with Algorand. Even though I love these cryptos from a certain perspective, they are VC babies. Another good example is actually Aptos, which again is a VC baby. And so if you're just a casual holder, the VCs are going to dump on you every now and then, usually every month or usually every quarter, half a year or a full year. The last thing he warns us for is to be involved in the business of loans, or at least if the company is involved in loans, be a little bit more fearful or potentially avoid it altogether. Now, obviously, anybody with a brain knows that a company that is not profitable, yeah, that doesn't look like the most juicy company to work with, but you don't know if they're profitable until they tell you they're losing money, which is almost never unless things go bad, right? So the best and easiest way to spot that is to not be in a situation where you need to really care about it too much. If you've watched my videos for a couple of months, a couple of days, a couple of years, you most likely notice there's a link to Ledger in my description, every single one of them. The reason I have it right there is because you need to get yourself a hardware wallet to store your crypto on. The moment you got it stored on a Ledger device, you got to understand this, whatever happens to the exchange that you kept your money on previously, it doesn't matter to you. So you don't need to think about whether or not they're profitable. Well, when it comes to profitability, the best thing I can say is you have to understand their business model and you have to see if it makes sense. A lot of investment firms, they are basically trying to start a project or some sort of return to investors for giving them money. But when the returns are astronomical and don't make sense, think about it logically. I've had, let's say, tens of calls as of this point with companies where I don't fully understand their premise or how they could ever make money. And so I don't invest. It's as simple as that. If it doesn't feel good, stay away from it, which is one of the easiest things to explain. Companies that survive by selling their own token, again, depends a little bit on the situation. I personally think if it is essential, if the company needs these tokens to stay afloat, that is bad. If they're doing it for a reason, in the sense that they want to, for example, use it for something, I mean, that's very logical. At the end of the day, that's very often why these projects have the funds. And that's also how smaller projects would work rather than big ones. But you got to also understand he might be looking at it from the perspective of, well, I guess there's a yield mechanism where if they have tokens, they're going to be more tokens. And so holding these is more profitable than getting rid of them. But on an opposite end, I personally don't really care if they sell their own token unless they're trying to dump every single one of them. The high incentive for locking your tokens comes back to this earlier principle which we stated, which is the bank run mechanism. If they really are giving you a high percentage return, that basically means that people with a lot of money in there are going to get some crazy returns quicker as well, which is going to either diminish the return over time or just completely dilute everything, which is not so good for people that are casual holders, simple holders. But also, very often they want you to lock it for some strange reason. And so the higher the percentage, the more inclined you are to lock it for longer periods of times. And usually that's also not so nice. Referring all this back to the bank run mechanism, the moment that people actually go to their bank right now and say, hey, I want to withdraw all my money, and my whole family does, and we all want to do it right now, there's a 99.9% chance that you won't be able to do it. They'll say they don't have enough cash, they don't have this, that. But in reality, it is the bank teller that's always known in his head that whenever people want to withdraw a lot of money, you have to file a request, right? If you want to go to your bank right now, I'm not sure how much money you have, right? But let's say you want to withdraw $15 million right now, pick a number. It's going to take a little bit of effort, it's going to take a little bit of time, and you might actually have to fill a couple of questionnaires before you can withdraw your own money. If a lot of people want to do that, things would actually go completely wrong because, well, they're lending your money out. Even though nowadays you don't even get interest on it anymore. Before they used to give you a percentage of the pie. Right now you don't get anything. They just lend it out and make money on you, basically. Or potentially lose it. But the whole principle comes together in the sense that as long as you don't want to take all your money out at once, or if you do, other people don't, they'll be fine. They'll keep afloat. But as soon as everybody wants to take it out at once, they'd be screwed. Another thing I think you should understand is that these things work in cycles. We've actually gone through this entire endeavor multiple different times. I've been making these crypto YouTube videos for roughly 6 years almost now as of this point. And what I've noticed very often is that every single time that crypto prices go lower, people get fearful. Again, I've been in the crypto space for 9 years right now. I was actually here in 2013 as well. And trust me when I say that I personally had a couple of doubts at some couple of points, but I held on all this time. And I'm personally not going to sell it. People keep saying, oh, but you might want to maximize your profit by selling. I don't know that game. My game is not in the trying to sell my main stash to make it more. My main game is into getting as much as I can because I know this technology will stay around forever. Now, does that mean that it's going to be one upwards line up and up and up? No, I don't think so. I think there's going to be more hiccups and, well, this is a very big one. But I also think it has to happen for this crypto regulation to come through. And that's also why I think the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit is so important to get some crypto fundamentals in the US in. But let's get back to this principle as well. How can you prepare for the near future, as a couple other projects might also fall? I don't want to make people panic. And so I don't want to say, get your money off of every single place because everything could fall. What I will say is stay with your trusted exchanges or stay with your people, parties that you know very well and make sense. For me, Bybit makes a whole lot of sense. They've just sent us all an email explaining that they're going to go for some deeper financial records. Basically, they're going to explain more what they had. However, I cannot guarantee anybody that Binance will always stay afloat. Bybit, Binance, they're all the same in that sense. Met up with the CEO, met up with a lot of people from these teams. And I can honestly say things feel good because I understand how profitable they have been. That does not mean that they will always stay this way. And that does not mean that they haven't made some crazy, stupid investments that we cannot foresee right now. You know, it's really a game of trust, which is not completely possible when you can't see the insights. I just know they're doing really well in terms of money making, so most likely there's not any big issues with those. Another one which I think is doing very well is BitGet. Again, that's why I always have links in my description below of places that I personally use. And you will not see a BlockFi, as of this point, Nexo. I did think about it sometimes because they are, in terms of return, look pretty nice. But I've never trusted it as much yet to lock my money up. And that's why I'm not telling you guys either. But I always have a link there for BitGet. I always have a link there for Binance. I always have a link there for Bybit. Those are the guys that I know very well and love, and I know they've been very profitable. So I trust them to keep my trading funds on there. But as I stated earlier, you got to get your main funds to one of these devices if, I'd say, you have more than $500 worth of crypto. The reason I'm saying $500 or more is if you have less than 500, it might be worth it to just use either the blockchain wallet, and Exodus wallet, just wallets where you have control over your keys, potentially even MetaMask or Trust Wallet, depending on what type of different cryptocurrencies you are holding. But the more money you get, the more essential one of these devices becomes. When do you absolutely need it? I'd say from $10,000 plus, it's a necessity. Below that, it's a recommendation. And again, that recommendation starts at $500 or more. Below $500, I personally wouldn't even bother. And the same thing goes for people that don't really understand crypto that well, who are not really involved with the day-to-day. I'd personally say two things. One, learn more about it, because what happened to, me, is I thought that my money was fine on one crypto exchange. I logged back onto it a year later and the exchange was gone. It can happen to everybody that you are just a long-term holder. You're thinking, hey, I'm going to put it onto my exchange. I'm going to look back in 10 years and it's all going to be fine. It might not be. Then again, if you only had let's say $300 from the get-go, you buy yourself an 80 euro device to store the then $250 that's left. I personally think it might be worth it to take the risk of keeping it on a platform so you can still use that significant amount of money that one of these would cost to basically spend on your crypto. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I making that so clear? As I've said, right, a lot of companies might still fall. And if we look at the list which I described to you guys earlier over on Twitter and in my previous video, there's a lot of companies in here that are not necessarily going to die. They're not necessarily going to fall, but might. And that's actually the most critical step right here. A lot of these companies had some sort of investment by these major firms, or they might have used the services of FTX to some degree. Like, let's say, for example, this CoinFlex. Don't know what they do. AscendX, potentially. Voyager. Well, wait a minute. That's a different story for a different day. But there's a couple ones in this little bracket right here, which, for example, might have used FTX for some way. And because of that, might now be in a lot of significant trouble. For that specific reason, I'd be a little bit more cautious being involved with any of these. And even though I wouldn't sell all my coins if we're talking, for example, about an IMX right here, I wouldn't necessarily do that. I would personally look into involving myself as minimally as possible with these projects that are on this list that they were involved with just for the time being. Again, that does not mean take everything out. I actually met up with the Phantom people literally yesterday. I still love the people over at Clayton. These are awesome guys. I still am in love with Polygon. And I don't think that these projects are going to actually be hurt like crazy too much. But I would keep the most influential crypto person in the world's thoughts in mind, where he basically said a lot of projects are going to potentially fall in the next couple of weeks that are in similar situations as FTX. And keep in mind that you have to just be more fearful with your crypto. I'd personally indeed look into taking money off of exchanges that is dormant. I'd look into seeing what coins you're actually holding that might be in this danger zone and potentially either selling them or potentially, if you're holding them on that specific platform, to take them off of these sketchy wallets, take them off of these sketchy places, and moving them to some very nice storage for the longer term. Again, I'm just telling you guys this because I personally do not really think that the majority of cryptos in this list will not survive. I personally just think they might have a big hiccup, and so the short term might just be annoying for using the protocols or keeping your tokens on their specific platforms. For example, I'd be a little bit more cautious staking some of these tokens right now because things could move really quickly. You don't want to lock up your tokens. I'd be a little bit more scared with using a DeFi system on here, like for example, this whatever finance. I would be a little bit more cautious utilizing that because they might actually have some problems in the back end. I don't know, but I personally would stay away from it for the time being and let things figure itself out over the next couple of weeks. And if you get out right now of a crypto specifically and the prices start booming, boom, things are up 40%. Well, we always know things can skyrocket in a blink. But things could also go minus 99.9% in a blink. We've seen Solana go down a significant amount because of one specific simple announcement. We've seen FTT go down 95% because of one specific announcement. That could happen to any crypto. So I personally say the risk averse, logical way to go about it is minimize your risk in the risky zone. And then I'd say just believe in the long term because that's what I'm still doing. You might also ask about stablecoins. I personally trust USDC and BUSD over Tether 100%, but I'd actually say that if you really are into stablecoins, it might be worth looking into getting that into a fiat. At the end of the day, guys, and I'm really much convinced of this, you can never really own anything that's completely safe. A house, there can always be something that happens to either your house or to your rights of owning it. It's always a thing. Gold can be taken away from you, can be stolen, for example. Your bank account can be frozen. What can you really hold forever that you can really have? At the end of the day, you're just you, yourself, in your body. We're going a little bit deep right now in the sense that you can never really own anything anyway, which is becoming a more and more important theme in our world, which is why I love crypto so much, for the sense that it cannot be taken away from you because you, theoretically speaking, own it because they can't take it away. It's just impossible, right? Unless you are working with a very centralized system. But that's the beauty of decentralization. But so if you're asking me if Tether or USDC or BUSD, everything has their negative sides. FTX was also involved with Circle, but Circle has backers that are big enough to bail them out of any situation, I'd say. With Tether, they could crash to some degree, but they have had so many audits, I'd say they're pretty good. With BUSD as well, if Binance falls, BUSD falls, so that's also not the best risk management in the world. It's certainly possible to go for a little bit of a mix. I'm definitely not opposed to that. But I'd say most importantly, and I think most people will agree with me here, it's best to go for some, I'd say personally, some fiat stuff on the side for in case the whole USDT thing does collapse and things just get really, really bad for crypto. Because I'm not really excluding that we cannot just have another 50% crash from here on forward. If USDT were to crash, that's surely possible. As of this point, it doesn't look likely because things are already figured themselves out and we've kind of seen the worst. Bitcoin has already seen the biggest crash in a very long time. But if what CZ is true, and a lot of other crypto projects are going to fall, you should be prepared for stablecoins to have a rough time, and that just depends on what project falls and who they're going to take with them in that little sort of, snowball effect. But all I can say about that is we shall see. Guys, that was it for today's video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. Just a little update on my thoughts and whatnot. At the end of the day, guys, I still believe in crypto to the fullest. It's just the short term that's rather annoying right now, but we'll get over it. So all I do is just keep on buying the dip. Kind of running out of money, but luckily I can put my income into it every single day, and that helps out a little bit because my longer term stash of crypto, Tether, and basically USDC, I've started to put into it. I still have a good chunk left though, because I'm always looking for an even bigger dip, or potentially I'm fine with keeping it in stables as well as a safety measure. But yeah, that was it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. See you guys later in another one. Make sure you press the like button. Adios, amigos.